better? Not really. We're gonna go with it, okay? Anyways, I'm Michelle with Michelle Loves Books. Welcome back to my channel. So, I'm having to make a really difficult decision right now because I'm just running out of, I just am not having time for YouTube right now because with all the school closures, I'm basically having to homeschool my kids now, and it has turned out where today was day 2 of this homeschooling thing. It's been a lot. It's been really stressful. So this is going to have to take over all of my time. So I just wanted to put that out there. I swear it never stops. I just recouped from February and I don't know if that video is going to come up, but it was just a lot. I had to take an emergency trip to go see my grandmother in Texas. That messed everything up, and then a lot of home projects. It's just been a lot. So then I get home and I'm like trying to recoup from all of that and get back on track, and then all of this other stuff starts happening and it's just going to be continuing down this slope. So I'm going to have to scale back on YouTube quite a bit. Anyways, I did want to do this vlog project. I was really excited to get it done. I had it all prepped and ready to go. So as you can tell from the title, I have read Allie's from Hardback Hoarders favorite books. I will leave her channel link below. You've got to check it out if you haven't already. So you probably already know who she is. If you don't, do yourself a favor and go check out her channel. I love her channel. She is one of my favorite booktubers that I watch on a regular basis. Her content is just really creative and fun. I love her personality and the energy that she puts into her content. That's all I'm saying. I just really like her channels. Some of her tastes I already know that probably are not my cup of tea, but the way she talks about them sometimes makes me want to read stuff that I wouldn't normally pick up on my own. She also likes other things too that I'm pretty sure that I definitely would like a lot of the fantasy books that she reads, I'm sure that I would really like. So I was really interested to take her all-time favorites and see how I would like them. So this video is bouncing off of her video where she reads Books and Lala's favorite books. She did mention that she is waiting for someone else to read her favorite books, so here you are. I did it, finally. Unfortunately, I absolutely suck at vlogging to begin with. Like, there's literally just something wrong with me. I just can't ever get it right. So I was just incredibly busy, story of my life, and I just could not. So we were just compiling this from books I read over the past couple of months that it took me to do this vlog. Anyways, so the first pick was The Perks of Being a Wallflower. I also read Turn of the Key. I think she actually read that book for the Books and Lala Favorites books video that she did. And this one was also already on my TBR, so I was excited to pick this up. I also read Ocean at the End of the Lane. I've recently been seeing this book everywhere, so that was also on my TBR. Roses and Rot and City of Girls. These two were definitely on her favorites of 2019 list. So now I'm thinking that there might just have to be a part 2 because there were so many books on her favorites of 2019 list that sound really good to me too. But some of them I just could not find a copy of and I just didn't get around to them. So anyway, for now, let's get into what these books were about and how my reading experience went. So the first one we're gonna talk about is Perks of Being a Wallflower. I kind of wanted to save this book for the last one. It's likely the weirdest experience I've ever had with a book. This is essentially about a boy named Charlie who writes letters explaining his life in high school. Dating for the first time, friends, family, relationships, and mental health. So this book is entirely in letters to an unknown person who never writes back. When I say this reading experience was strange, it's because at first I was so bored with this book. It seemed absolutely pointless. They were the longest letters ever, with every minute detail of his day, which I really do not care for in books. I didn't need to know the process of someone walking downstairs into the kitchen, out the back door, to school. I can assume that that's the process you went through because I'm sure you didn't teleport. It would be different if there's something that actually happened within that time, but like nothing happened. So that was my biggest issue with this book. Thankfully, it was a really short book, so I didn't put up with it for too long. What kept me reading this book was because I knew there was something with mental health, and he slightly mentions it in his letters, but it's really nothing more than that. I did get a sense that he had something going on because of the way his interactions were, the way he talks, his responses, how he processes what's going on. It's kind of hard to explain, but it's kind of something about his speech pattern that made me think that he has like autism or Asperger's. He did briefly mention schizophrenia, so I really had to find the answer. That never came. I was totally just left hanging and I really did not like it. Although I understand why they do that. Come up with your own conclusions, so that's good. I'm not judging the book on that. It was something that was going through my mind. I was just thinking that I wasted all this time for nothing. I wanted more about that and less about every insignificant detail of his day that nobody would actually write in a letter. So needless to say, I hated this book. I did give it a 2-star though, and that's just because I did continue reading it. I was engaged and wanted to know more. And I thought that Charlie was a really sweet kid. I did like the characters. So I was thinking, damn, how am I gonna talk about this book in a wrap up? And no joke, it was like 2 days later, I just got in my car, I was sitting in my car in the parking lot, and it was like a light bulb went off. And I was like, wait, what? Is that what they're trying to tell me? That all along, Charlie did have schizophrenia. And the way the book ended, where he had like quit writing because he was getting some help, and then the next page, it had been some time and Charlie starts writing again. So that leads me to believe that this person he's writing to, the perspective that the reader sees, isn't a schizophrenic episode where it's not real. When he's writing, he's not healthy. And when he's away and he's not writing, that's when he is in his right mind. This significantly changed my whole perspective and respect for this book. Although once the excitement of finally figuring it out did wear off, I did kind of look at my whole experience again reading this book, and I decided to end this book with a 3-star, if I had to rate it. This is really one of these funny books that I really don't want to assign a star rating to. On one hand, it was still one of the most boring books I've ever read. Okay, maybe not quite, but it had a powerful punch at the end and left me thinking about it more. And I'm very thankful that I read it. I sort of maybe wanted to read it again to look at Charlie's reactions and things just a little bit more clearly now that I have this perspective, but I just don't know if I could bring myself to make it through all of that writing that bothered me so much. The next one I read is Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware. This is a thriller and is a retelling of Turn of the Screw, which I listened to that several months ago in preparation for this book. To be honest, I couldn't tell you anything about that book. I did not like it. I could not get into it. What really threw me off was the whole ghostly haunting thing. I really just cannot get into that unless it's done in such a way that I can't really even explain. So Turn of the Key is about a woman who takes a job as a nanny for a wealthy family who lives in this like huge mansion, because honestly, who else can afford a nanny? But the house is described as a smart house, and we're really set up as we're building up the world that this house is like this crazy smart house. And that's how everyone talks about this book when they talk about it, as well as with the latest technologies in home security throughout the house. One of the kids that she's watching is really difficult to get along with, and she's constantly sabotaging her job. She really resembles a bad seed who has like evil plots. I did really like the format. It's told as a letter as well, but she's telling her letter to an attorney because they open up the book with the fact that she has been accused for a murder. She is in prison, and so she's writing to this attorney to hear her side of the story because all of the evidence stacks against her. It does mention, I'm writing you these letters because, but it really blends well into storytelling so that you kind of forget that it's a letter. I really liked the book, but it wasn't the page turner I was expecting. It was missing a more ominous atmosphere that I thought would have really added to the suspense of the book. And this is likely a personal issue again, although there's definitely more to the story, as it's not a ghost story or a haunting story, but it sets up for that idea that there's maybe like something haunting the house. And I think I just get turned off by this. Really, I just don't care for hauntings. There's something like silly and hokey about it or something to me. So Rowan, our main character, well, her character is set up to be this pretty easygoing, chill person who really doesn't get upset easily about things. But this spooky interaction leaves her a bit spooked, which I thought was contradictory to her character, mostly because there wasn't really any, it didn't seem very gradual to me. It seemed pretty instantaneous. Anyway, it was such a tiny detail, but it stood out to me that I didn't like that part. I did like how Rowan was real about her patience for the children because she's not really cut out to be a nanny. There's also the poison garden, which I thought was really intriguing, as this house used to belong to some doctor, and he had this poison garden and, you know, experiments and stuff like that. So, and finally, as the story comes to a close, I really, really liked the ending. Some parts of the book that kind of slowed down, I felt like it was worth the journey when I got that ending. I don't really know why I rated it 3.5 to 4 stars. I think just because I was expecting a little bit more. I was expecting like this like thrilling page turner. There was definitely some parts in there, like I said, that was kind of slow, where they spent a lot of time just talking about her duties in the house with the kids. Some of her interactions were kind of dragged out. There was a lot of her like recounting conversations and interactions that she had with people, and I really kind of wanted more of the poison garden and more of the smart house. Although in retrospect, those aspects really weren't the focal point, but attributing factors to how she ended up in prison and what happened to this little girl and how she got duped. And I just realized that, like, I guess my tastes sometimes aren't always consistent, because I do like books that are subtle, like this one is, because they're more relatable and realistic story, versus ones that are overly dramatic. Gone Girl. But Gone Girl I really enjoyed, and it was definitely overly dramatic, unrealistic, but it was the shock factor, entertainment. So I can tell you what I'm looking for. But this book was excellent. After doing this vlog project and kind of going back and retracing my steps and my feelings on all these books, that I kind of need to let books settle for a little bit more than I really give myself time to reflect on books sometimes. So that's been a good bonus for self-improvement. So I think now I would rate this book at a 4.5. The next one is The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. I gave this book 3 stars when I first read it, but I think that I would probably knock it down to about a 2.5 or something. This book in particular is really difficult to explain. It was honestly really strange, and one of the biggest things that I thought was absolutely disgusting was this worm. So worm crawls up in this boy's foot and they try to pull it out, and it's like falling apart and it's stuck in there, and then this worm like turns into this evil woman. This boy makes a friend who's a little bit older than him. She lives with her aunt at the end of the road, which is very close to the ocean at the end of the lane. It's just a lake, but she calls it an ocean. So we never really understand why she calls it that, except for like maybe she's just really creative. I don't know. These aunts and this girl are actually really cool because they have like this second sight, and these aunts, like, it was just really weird, and it kind of makes me think that how you see things as a child are not necessarily like realistic. So maybe this is just his perspective of something that he was unhappy with in his childhood. Like, he connected the worm to the woman, but like maybe they really aren't the same person. I don't know. I really don't know. I'm lost, and it was weird. Now, I do like quirky books, but this one really leaves me scratching my head, which I think is maybe just a little too quirky for me. As I guess you're just supposed to take from it what you will, but this book just doesn't answer a lot of those questions that I had. So yeah, this one, it's not for me. Next, I listened to Roses and Rot by Kat Howard, and I was so excited to read this one. Allie's excitement over this book was very contagious.
It was even more exciting for me because I was like, oh, fairies have appeared. I loved this so much.
And it's a fairy tale, it's fantasy, definitely something that I generally really like, but I really just didn't have the same excitement over this book as Allie did. So I ended up giving this one 3.5, maybe 4 stars. This follows twin sisters who get accepted to a school, an art school. One sister is a dancer and the other one is a writer. Now, the sister who's a dancer is beloved, and like she's the favorite because she's a dancer, and the other sister who's the writer, her mom really does not like the fact that she's a writer and thinks it's like, you know, not as good as a dancer. So that's a big issue throughout this girl's lives. The girls are very close, although before going to the school, they were in this long period of estrangement due to their mom. So they wind up at the school where they meet these beautiful boys. They discover the secret fae world, which is really cool because it's presented like a secret society that runs through the college. And it's a society that preys on those people who are desperate enough to give anything to be the absolute best. The premise is excellent, but honestly, I was bored through a lot of it. What I liked best was this focus on the struggles of being an artist, with the fear of failure, competition, the idea that simply doing it is not good enough. These people are desperate to be the best, be famous, make a career, and ultimately be remembered throughout time. So they will sell their soul to the devil or the fae to achieve this. I really hated the mother in this. This woman was so awful, and it started to err on the overly dramatic. I think that that's what knocked it down for me quite a bit. I also got big Cruel Prince vibes from this book. Now, I am new to fairy lore, I would say, but as I read more, I am starting to learn kind of what I like in these books about fairies. Finally, I read City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert. And oh my god, I love this book so much. I immediately recommended it to 2 other people as soon as I was finished reading it, and I could not stop thinking about it. I just loved it. So this one was definitely a 5-star for me. This is a historical fiction that takes place in the 1940s when Vivian is 19 years old. She comes from a wealthy family in Europe, I think, and she gets kicked out of her school. So her parents are very disappointed and they send her to Manhattan to live with her Aunt Peg. It's actually also told in letters, for a matter of fact, but it's woven into the story so well that you really forget that you're even reading a letter. So her Aunt Peg owns an odd little theater where these showgirls work, and it's kind of like a seedy joint, but it's all very exciting to Vivian. She befriends one of the girls who introduces her to partying and boys. Vivian decides that she wants to lose her virginity, and so the showgirls find her a man to lose her virginity to. When this doctor tries to pay her, though, she realizes that the showgirls are regularly getting paid for sex. They never use the word prostitution, and Vivian honestly finds nothing wrong with this. Although she doesn't ever do that again herself, but this starts her on a path of excessive partying, drinking, and promiscuity. This part of her life is the most told storytelling bit, but we continue throughout her life until she is an old woman. So we really get to know her character and her life, and it's so interesting. Also in the background, politically, there is a war starting. And I could go on talking about everything that happened in this book and about her life, but I won't do that to you guys. But my feelings on this character is just so inspirational. She is so fiercely independent. She has learned who she truly is and what makes her happy, despite it being the 40s and her lifestyle kind of being looked down on. She's very resourceful with her sewing skills, and I really thought that was really cool. I think someone was just doing a video about, or maybe it was a talk on Twitter about a lot of characters don't have hobbies, or they're kind of mentioned but they're not really explored. An instance where Vivian's sewing hobby turned into a very lucrative career and got her hooked up with a lot of different people. So that was just so cool. I really loved the cast of characters, from her Aunt Peg and her partner and her Aunt Peg's husband, and the showgirls, and the man that she winds up truly falling in love with, but she can never touch because he was in the war and he's come home with severe PTSD, and how they're connected was very crazy. So it was just, there's so much to love about this book. There's just so many different types of love represented in this book as well. There's LGBTQ rep, there's the whole dynamic between her Aunt Peg and her husband, as her husband's just kind of in and out and does his own thing, and she still loves him, even though he's just not really present. He's present when he wants to be, and her Aunt Peg just accepts him for whoever he is and whatever he does. And I thought that was very interesting. I think a lot of times in relationships, you get into these committed relationships and then you expect things from each other. And so I think that it definitely offers something to think about as, you navigate your own relationships. So needless to say, I love this book so much. So that's it for now, and if I were to do a part 2, some books that I would really want to read are The Last True Poets of the Sea, The Girl Who Drank the Moon, Wicked Saints, Circe, and Nevernight. Yeah, so we'll see. Probably won't be for a really, 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 really long time that I would do that, but you never know. So thank you for watching. Bye!